Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast. There's a few cool announcements and a bunch of videos I want to show you guys, plus I have an interview at the end with Phonedork. So let's just get right to it and start with the news. So first up is some pretty huge news regarding the Analog NT Mini. Kevtris, the guy behind the guts of it, has released special firmware that adds a ton of functionality to it. So first of all, through the SD card you can play ROMs now, and not only is it its own ROM cart, but you're actually able to play games that aren't supported off of the Power Pack and EverDrive. On top of that, you're able to load other FPGA cores from based on other consoles, so you're essentially turning it into multiple consoles now. At the moment, he has ColecoVision, Game Gear, Master System, SG-1000 all in that as well, and he said there's more cores coming pretty soon. He just needs to test and kind of make the last additions. So I have a full review of it, complete with all the behind-the-scenes stuff you can imagine. But just to skip to the end for people that maybe just want the tidbits, it's my opinion that when it was just a NES and Famicom device that allowed you to play it off of cartridges, it was still very, very awesome and one of the few just out-of-the-box solutions that you could buy. But it's very expensive, and it was really meant for people that have the extra money to spend on something like that. The type of person that all they need is a Toyota, but they would rather have the Lexus. There's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely awesome. But with this update, even if he didn't add any more cores, with just this update alone, it's now the more affordable option. If you really think about it, if you needed to buy a Nintendo and a ColecoVision, just those two, let's say, and get the ROM carts for them, and get their RGB mods, and then buy an upscaler so you could also play it on a flat screen, you're already over the cost of the NT Mini. So I'm pretty impressed. I'm blown away at both the quality and the features you get for it, and I just think it's really awesome. And my only hope is that they someday come out with a cheaper version that maybe isn't as pretty, because this really is well built and looks great. Maybe they just come out with one with like a cheap plastic case and cut a bunch of money off the price or something. But that's it. It's really my only criticism is the cost. Everything else, this is just amazing. And you get RGB, component, S-Video, composite, and HDMI up to 1080p 5X for all consoles. So, I mean, just the thought of playing Master System games in RGB without any interference on the analog line, that alone is pretty darn amazing. So I hope anybody that's more interested in it, definitely check out the link. And if not, I guess I just hopefully gave you all the basic info you'd need from it. Next up, Smokemonster has a really big addition to his ROM packs. He's added an Atari 2600 pack, and he said the N8, so the Nintendo stuff, is launching with tons of new content and different add-on packs that he hasn't had before. And he's also adding his arcade packs to them. There's also a new subdirectory of the NES packs that are meant for the NT Mini only, because that at the moment is the only thing that could play some of these larger ROMs, like or the unsupported mapper ROMs, like Legend of Link, that Zelda game I've been playing that I really like a lot. So yeah, huge thanks to him, and thanks to all the people that have been helping out to try to get these ROM packs more complete, because this is just makes all of our lives easier. So I'll definitely be downloading all of them right away. A new NES ROM was just dumped. I believe it's a Korean game called Magic Kid Goo Goo. And it looks, just based off the pictures, kind of like Super Mario 2, although I haven't had a chance to play it yet. But it's pretty neat because we're still finding cartridges that haven't had their ROMs dumped even all these years later. So anybody interested, check it out, and it could only be played on emulators or the Analog NT Mini because the mapper isn't supported anywhere else yet. Another really huge update this week, the OSSC, the open source scan converter, just added 4x and 5x 1080p scaling, which I think is a really big deal because now you have a device that is now pretty close to on par with the FrameMeister. It doesn't have a frame buffer, which the major difference with that is you get zero lag, but that also doesn't guarantee compatibility with every TV. So you might still have to add another component in between. Some people were checking out like DVDO micros and things like that, but overall I just think it's really awesome that he was able to put so much into this. Just a ton of props to Marcus for doing this and to keep supporting his product. He also did mention that this is pretty much at its hardware cap for what it could do. So there aren't going to be too many other huge updates to this in the future, but he's going to continue to support it and tweak it. And also the software for this is fully open source, so if anybody else wanted to take a look, they could as well. But I just really love this thing, and I'm happy that they keep supporting it. A few other features they added was a pass-through option for all modes, 960i and 1080i support, and 4:3:8:7 aspect ratio selections. So, even if they keep putting in smaller features, I'll just happy to use it. In fact, the only real complaint I have is we all don't have one yet. I totally understand when something's privately made that you can't just slap down $100,000 and have a bunch made, but hopefully they'll get production issues into check and we'll all be able to purchase one soon. So I recently found out that I was very wrong about something I've been saying for years. All Genesis 3 consoles do output RGB unless they're broken. I was arguing with friends of mine about this, and they insisted that they do output RGB. So I went down to Brooklyn Video Games, and the owner, Steve, was nice enough to let me take all of his Genesis 3s apart and test them. And I was literally sitting there cross-legged on the floor of his store with customers around, trying to pull things apart and test them using his RGB monitor. And it's really nice of him to let me do that, especially because I don't have the space to do it now. So I had it all spread out and all figured out, and I was convinced, absolutely convinced, that at least one of them were not going to output RGB, because I know for a fact I tested one that didn't. Well, I must have just tested one that was broken, and then read on all the forums that Genesis 3s don't output RGB and assumed, which I don't usually do that. I usually put more research into anything, especially SNES and Genesis. Those are my favorite consoles, really. So I don't know how I let this one slip all these years. But we have a hypothesis on why people think it doesn't output RGB. Unlike the other consoles, you have to push the RGB cable pretty far in. And I'll show pictures for anybody watching on YouTube, and anybody listening will probably want to come back and check this out. But basically, you have to have a cable that passes through the plastic hole into it. And unlike the Genesis 1, for example, where the hole is much bigger than the port, this one isn't. So I would think that it's a possibility that maybe some cables weren't fitting in all the way, and that especially the custom cables. I have the ones from both Retro Console Accessories and Retro Gaming Cables, and both of them worked fine. The HD Retrovision cables worked fine. So I'm thinking that the only thing, the Genesis 3 console that was broken on my end, my guess is that the actual input port was probably a little bit bad, and when I touched up the solder joints on the bottom, everything started working again. I had actually, on mine, I cut the traces and ran the wires and everything, but mine definitely didn't output RGB because I had the board out and I had it plugged in. But I actually went back and found that unit. I had that one that was broken. I had given to my friend Justin, and when we were arguing about this, I had to mail it right back. And I took it apart and checked again, and that one would, before I cut the traces and everything, it probably would have outputted RGB if I just fixed the connector. So if you guys have any experience with this, post in the comments. But basically, if you have a Genesis 3, try it just to see, it's probably going to work. Even if you have to take the motherboard out just so you can get the connector in all the way, give it a try. It's 99.9% chance that it'll work. So I've updated the little little blurb on my Genesis page about that to reflect it. Only thing to keep in mind is that they are all mono audio. And there's been some debate about that, but the only ones, it either is mono on the left channel or mono comes out of both speakers. I don't know if that's a cable thing or the motherboard revision, but that's also kind of an easy fix too, because you could just jump the mono audio pin over to left and right. It's still mono, it would just come out of both speakers. So it's still not the perfect console. It still doesn't have support for like Virtua Racing, Master System games. They said Gargoyles doesn't work on it, and Game Genie. But I've been using mine now, and the RGB output's actually very good quality, at least on mine. So if you just want to play basic Genesis games, they're cheap and small. If you're looking to save space, it's not a bad idea. I would just recommend doing an audio, at the very least, an audio amp upgrade to it so you get full stereo. And DB Electronics, of course, has their RGB bypass coming out soon that has the audio built in. So I don't know that you would really need an RGB bypass on it. The ones that I've seen tested, pretty well. There was still a little bit of jail bars, but nothing nearly as bad as the other revisions. But hey, maybe just kill two birds with one stone and do it all at once. But yeah, I was pretty shocked about that. So Genesis 3's output RGB. Next up, Mike Moffat has a new board design for his N64 VGA project. Or I think maybe the board is finalized and he's just testing a new rev of it. But he said in about a week he'll be able to test and see where he's at. So that's great. Now we soon to have another option for N64. I know a lot of people that do the gaming tournaments. I think the Smash tournaments with them. It's much easier to get CRT VGA monitors than anything else, and of course they look better than consumer grade TVs. So something like this would really be perfect. Lag-free 480p VGA out. Just get a bunch of old CRT tubes and have a lag-free, lag-free competition. So yeah, I can't wait to see it and hopefully give one a try. My Life in Gaming has just started a B-Roll channel where they post all of their game footage for other people to use in their projects, which is pretty awesome because they have a ton of great footage from different games and consoles, and rather just have it sit on their hard drives, they're donating it to the public pretty much to use. And yes, of course, you still get a little bit of the YouTube compression on it and everything, but they just wanted to provide higher quality game footage for people. So thanks to them for donating their extras to the community. I'm sure it'll come in handy. And they're just starting out now, so there isn't too much up there, but they're going to continue to post as they have extra footage. So thanks to them. This isn't really any new news. I just recently stumbled across something and realized that I never talked about it before. But there's a few groups of people that actually take older classic sports games and update them with modern rosters. So I stumbled across NBA Jam 2017, so it's the Super Nintendo version with all the modern players in it, and they added their own secrets just like in the original. Very cool. And of course there's the team behind the Tecmo Bowl updates that every year they update them with the newest team rosters. So I just thought that was really neat, and anybody that's a fan of classic sports games that have a ROM cart and want to play them today, definitely check it out just for fun, because it's the same exact experience that you had, but now there's players that you see on TV today as you're watching the games. There's an update to the Atari 5200 project. It looks like the first group of units have already shipped, and if you check the link in the description, you could actually check your current status. And also, he said it looks like a second run will be necessary to meet all the orders. So a small bit of bad news. If you were one of the last people to order, you're probably going to have to wait. But in my opinion, that's really good news, because that means there's a demand for this thing and that Simius will probably continue to make them. One of the biggest problems we have in the retro gaming community is somebody will come up with a cool product, do a small run, and then disappear. So a lot of people are really wanting a lot of things that you can't get their hands on. And so now that there's actually a proven demand, hopefully he'll be able to continue to make them, and maybe he'll just have like Game Tech does, where there's just a constant pre-order going on, and whenever there's enough orders to make a batch, he'll just send it out and continue going. But I'm still really interested in actually experiencing this console for the first time, and I even talk about that in the interview later on. So yeah, any 5200 fans, definitely let me know, and maybe I could try. I have a list of games to try or something. Smokemonster sent me another cool tip this week. There's a Nest to JAMA project made by somebody whose screen name I don't even think you're supposed to say it out loud. So, Wavugs, sorry, but it's basically designed for people whose Nintendo consoles output RGB and they want to put them inside a JAMA arcade cabinet. So while this isn't for everybody, this is definitely something I've seen before, and to have an actual project designed around it to make it easier for people is really cool. So anybody interested in something like that, definitely check it out. It looks like Castlevania is getting a Netflix original series. The main producer behind it posted on Facebook and said that he personally guarantees that it will end the streak and be the Western world's first good video game adaptation. I liked Tomb Raider. I liked the first Mortal Kombat movie. I mean, they weren't life-changing, award-winning movies, but I thought they were pretty good. But I did love everybody's commentary as soon as that popped up, and a bunch of people were just making Castlevania jokes. And Mike Matei posted, "I wonder if the new Netflix animated Castlevania series will have a box pop up in the air that interrupts the episode." I actually laughed out loud when I read that one. So, yeah, I guess I'll give it a try. I have Netflix, so why not? But I have little faith in video game adaptations to movies or TV. Saint from Retro HQ has posted another update to his Neo Geo Pocket ROM cart, and it looks like it's coming along great. He didn't give a specific release date, but I would guess that it's probably going to be done by the end of the year. I mean, it's only one guy doing all the work, but he's come pretty far along with it at this point. And I know I sound like a broken record when I say this. People that listen every week are probably like, "Oh, shut up." But I love ROM carts, and I love experiencing the games that I couldn't find or couldn't afford. And I really do buy all my favorites, but it's so cool to be able to go through and, spend 5 minutes each on 20 different games and go, "Wow, most of those sucked, but I really love and found this, and it's a hidden gem to me." And so yeah, I want every ROM cart so I could try all of the weird hidden gems and the games that I didn't realize that I would like, that I would have never been able to play without it. So I'll be getting one as soon as it's out and do a little mini review of it, but I just expect it'll work exactly as good as his Link's ROM cart. So I'll leave the link in the description to his YouTube channel, which you could subscribe to and get updates as he posts these videos if you're interested. I was invited down to take a look at a CRT RGB mod kind of midway in progress, and of course I headed right down to take a look at it. My buddy Jose took another consumer-grade CRT and was modding the jungle chip for RGB, and it was really cool to see it in progress, but as well as seeing that, I get to see a few others that he'd done. I think he's done over 4 now. And he was the person that did the first consumer grade mod that I'd seen in person. And while I thought that one was great, these came out even better. They were 27-inch curved tube TVs. And in all honesty, it looked exactly like an arcade monitor to me. And they must have been exactly like we talked about in the weeks past. They must have been newer, low-hour consumer grade TVs. But I was just absolutely impressed. And I asked him to show a little bit about how he does the mod. So by the time I got there, he'd obviously taken the entire TV apart and then pulled the board out. And excuse me, he was 3/4 of the way through of the actual wiring up. So I'll just the audio isn't great, but it's a really short clip, so I'll just pan over to that for people that want to just see what it looks like and have him explain it.
The jungle chip, right?
Yep.
I lifted my red, green, and blue, and I lifted fast blanking. But then I grabbed the original signal from the bottom and sent that up. So this will be to the middle of the switch right here. This is the middle of the switch.
Gotcha.
That's the original signals going in. This is my OSD. So all of this is going to one side of the switch, meaning it's OSD, red, green, blue, the original blanking signal. And then all 3 of these go to the middle. Then the side that's left is going to be for my SCART socket right there. SCART socket. And I got my, what is my, I'm pretty sure, this is my 5 volts for blanking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I caught him mid-mod, so all the wires were kind of just, sticking out, of course, because he's still working on them. There was more to that video, but the sound got kind of bad, so I'll just go into a little bit of what he said. But basically, he has all the wires run around and through the boards like that, and he has them very tight and running them, of course, around all the power components. So that way, when you put all the components back together, you don't have to worry about the wires getting pinched. So that's why he has them tacked down like that. And for anybody watching, no, the glue wasn't on solder joints. It was just there to hold the wires together while he put it back together. But I thought, I didn't stay till the end, but I thought the other ones that he did there came out really great. And you could see, anybody watching, where the SCART connector was cut out. You see the switch right there. I mean, it looks like a pro job. So I think, this has 2 really great uses. Obviously, for anybody that can't find an RGB monitor, this would be, in my opinion, a really awesome solution. And the size is a big difference, too, because you can get 27-inch really good tube TVs for pretty cheap, if not nothing. They're very common. But a 27-inch RGB monitor, I mean, forget it. You could find 20 and 14, but anything bigger is usually a pain. And the quality varies, of course. So I think if I ever make another stand-up MAME machine, I would probably take one of these. That way I could use a nice big 27-inch tube and try my best to mount it in there to make it look for real. But yeah, I was impressed. If you guys want, follow Jose on Twitter. I keep trying to get him to post more of his install pics on there. So maybe if he gets more followers, he'll be more inclined to do so. But I was really impressed with the work that they were doing. And yeah, definitely if you have the opportunity to have a TV like that modded by somebody that knows what they're doing and isn't going to electrocute themselves or you, I would recommend it. And if I had the space to take one, I would probably buy one of those off of them just to show off to people, because I thought it was really cool. And the fact that the composite video inputs are still active, now you'll get a really true idea of the difference between going in like that. Which reminds me, I think the next time I swing down there, I'm going to try to get exactly that. I'll bring my DSLR and do a composite and RGB pic of the same console on the same modded CRT. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm down there like once a month or so at least. I could certainly set something up and go down and hang out with those guys and maybe do a live Q&A if you had any questions about CRT modding. I think they'd be up for that. So definitely post in the comments, and I have a link to Jose's Twitter in there as well. And lastly, I found another game store that I really wanted to mention. Now, I know this is going to suck for people that don't live around the New York area, but just bear with me because I'll try to make it short, and I really just thought it was worth mentioning. Digital Press Games in Clifton, New Jersey, I think. I didn't even know they were there. I just Googled retro game store when I was driving around to a buddy's house, and that popped up. And I guess they're also the Digital Press Forum online. I didn't realize that. But as soon as I walked in, I just noticed all the rare stuff they had. Anything from, Nintendo Power magazines to arcade cabinets to stand-up displays. And then the next thing I noticed is that everything was priced fairly. And I rarely find that, I talked just in this podcast about Brooklyn Video Games. Those guys are great, fair prices. I've known the guy from Retro Games Plus, Chris. I had him on as an interview. That's another group of stores that's very fair and, treat their customers great. But I don't really find that very often. I just, I found a place in New York City that was charging $120 for an unmodded Atari 2600. So to find places like this, I really feel like it's worth mentioning, at least, a little bit on the podcast. And I saw they had refurbished Game Gears. And I asked, well, what do you mean refurbished? They said, oh, well, we do the full capacitor replacement. So not only do they sell it for a reasonable price, I think it was about $50, but if you bring your Game Gear in, it's $40 for a cap replacement. So, that's totally fair in my opinion, and that's just a great price. And while there's a lot of great modders online, you still have to pay for shipping both ways. So if you live in that area around, I think it was only 20 minutes from Manhattan. So if you live around that area, it might be worth checking out. And they have cool bargain bins. So, rather than test stuff that may or may not sell, they throw them in. And I dug out of there and found a whole bunch of stuff that I ended up using that all worked. It says untested $2, but everything I bought worked. So I got pretty lucky. The only thing I hate about stores like this is I always walk away spending a shitload of money. I'm obviously not going to blame the store for that, but I'm walking around like, oh, well, I really need to buy one of these. Let me just check it out, see if they have it. And then I walk out, $100 missing. So if you're around that area, definitely check it out. And props to those guys. And I believe they said they were considering doing RGB mods going over in the future. So if that happens, I'll definitely, I got to get a list on my site of like trusted modders or something, but I'll have them post pictures of their work and list them as a place. But yeah, it's just great to find another store that's around me that I could show. I don't know how else I could help promote people that aren't around me, but maybe I'll try to find a page for that too, like good game stores or something. But, thanks to those guys for being nice to me and let me wander around their store with a camera and ask a million questions. But I hope if you're in the area, you check it out. Before I get into the Q&A stuff, I just owe a quick apology about something I said last week. I had said something that came out the wrong way, and I know I do that all the time, but this time it sounded like I was digging somebody that didn't deserve it. And I'll tell you why first, and then I'll say what it was. But the problem is that I'm friends with Renee. I talk to him on a regular basis. So when we were doing the interview, there were many times that we picked up on conversations that we've already been having, which if I was better at giving interviews, I wouldn't do that. You know, when you interview a stranger, you don't know anything about them, so everything is a new conversation. And a couple of times we kind of got into things that, you know, without giving an intro to it, I thought we did an okay job keeping it on track for people to follow. But, you know, I'm getting better at these things, but I'm still kind of an amateur at it. And at one point, we were talking about a few different things at the same time. But Renee was holding up his 3D model of the SNES multi-out with his, that he open sourced to give out. So the conversation that he and I have had ongoing for a while is about open source, price gouging, and one of the things we'd mentioned when I got my SNES Raspberry Pi case, there was about 10 sellers. I bought mine for 20. Some people were selling the exact same thing for 100. So that's, you know, I was talking about 3D printing and price gouging. And then we were talking about when people have the only thing of something, you know, a lot of times they'll come in and charge $1 million for it because, you know, they can, because they're the only one. Well, I didn't realize at the time, because in my head, I'm just continuing a conversation with my friend about open source and shit, but it really seemed like we were digging on the team that were selling those multi-out connectors. And it's a little funny, because if just a little past that in the interview, Renee actually talks about how those were made in good quality, and they're not 3D printed, so they're actually a smooth, good quality design. But it did totally come across as if I was just sending out a dig, like, look at these guys overcharging for things. And that's not what I meant. And I got an email from Eric, the guy who did the 3D modeling. And it was a really nice email. It wasn't like, fuck off, Bob, you're an asshole. It was a very nice email. And I didn't, until he sent that email, I didn't even realize that that's how that came out. So sorry to him, and sorry to anybody else that I might offend. And I, you know, even in the interview with Phonedork today, like, I had a situation where somebody wronged me. I tried really hard to be polite, and they acted like an ass. So I call him out on it in the interview. Not Phonedork, but the person we were talking about. I don't feel bad about that. Maybe I should. Maybe that a lot more people are starting to watch this. I should keep my mouth shut and not badmouth somebody just because of one personal experience. But, or maybe I should. Maybe I should just put my thoughts out there. I don't know. But when something like that happens, I don't feel bad because that's my actual feeling towards what happened. But when stuff like this, with the 3D connector and stuff, I feel really bad because that's not what I meant at all. So a big apology to those guys selling it. I think RetroFixes sells it now. I link to it on my website. So obviously, if I had a problem with it, I wouldn't link to it. And I believe Helder designed the original PCB of it, but Wes from RetroFixes is upkeeping that now. I think I got all that right, but I'm really sorry that came across the wrong way. And if I'm ever talking about you and your projects and it comes out wrong, just let me know. And I'd appreciate a nice email like Eric sent, but if you want to tell me to fuck off, that's fine too. But, you know, let me know and I'll clear it up. And I'll try to be more conscious of how things come out. And if you guys decide that you hate me because of an opinion I truly believe in, there's nothing I can do about it. I would rather have that than have everybody pissed at me for something I didn't mean at all. So I hope that wasn't too long of a rant, and I hope everybody accepts my apology for saying that wrong. And I guess on to the rest of the Q&As. Okay, on a lighter note, Smokemonster asked, a topic I'd like to suggest would be if you know anyone who builds home-use arcade cabinets. Advice on building them from basic to advanced. Just an idea. Yeah, I love that idea. I would love to either have, at the very least, I would love a link to somebody that's trustworthy that we could purchase these services from. But I would also love to have somebody on that could talk about that. Because I know, you could find them online ranging from cheap to very expensive, and I'm not really sure which ones are the better ones to buy. But I know personally there's a few things that I would always have loved to have. I would love to take a 14-inch BVM and build a desktop arcade setup. And I realize how deep that would be and everything, but whatever. And just, have everything right there. And I don't know anybody that could do that for me. And I also would absolutely love to have a stand-up arcade built from scratch using a very big RGB modded consumer CRT, just like I was talking about before. So to find something huge, like a 32-inch TV that's good enough, and have Jose RGB mod it with me, and have somebody mount it into a home, a custom-built arcade cab, I think would be incredible, because I'd love the bigger size for an arcade. And that way, I mean, even before I got fat, I was always this wide. I'm almost 6 feet tall. So when I'm trying to play Mortal Kombat with Scott, our elbows are up. Scott, I think's my height or taller, so our elbows are up in each other's chest. I would love a huge 32-inch stand-up arcade cabinet for us to be able to play on. So, yeah, if anybody knows anybody that would be willing to come on and talk on Skype, or if there's anybody in the New York area, I would totally drive to go interview somebody about that. So please post in the comments if anybody knows. Okay, Mario Lemaistre said, the really long Mark III to Master System converter PCB is designed to be housed in a Mark III cartridge. I probably should have realized that, and I kind of feel dumb for not knowing it, but thank you for letting me know. And speaking of 3D printing, if anybody has an open source model of that they want to send me, Renee has the 3D models for regular Master System carts, but these are the Mark III ones, the thinner, taller ones. So I don't want to cannibalize one of my very few Mark III games, but if anybody has a 3D model, I totally would pick one up for that, just for the hell of it. So thanks for letting me know, and I feel silly for not thinking that. Next, Sterling Ference was asking about a Dreamcast solution for a component. So he's got a Toro box, and he just wanted to know how to go from VGA to component. That's a great question, and that's something I get all the time, and I wish I knew a reliable answer. In the past, I've used the Key Digital solutions that worked great, in my opinion, but they're hard to find now. They kind of pop up sporadically on eBay. And the Behar brothers actually make that the opposite, the component to VGA converter. But I don't know of a reliable one that goes the opposite. He posted a link to one on Monoprice, but I've heard mixed reviews on it. There are those ones in like the rectangular thin casings that I see all the time on eBay and Amazon that are kind of like generic. But the problem with those is I think a whole bunch of companies in China use the same or share the same mold. Because anytime you have a plastic mold like that, it's, tens of thousands of dollars. So you get them that are labeled the same, that have different guts in them. So I don't know if I've ever run into this with VGA to component, but I've definitely seen like component to HDMI where one is great and one is shit. So if anybody knows a great place to actually get those, or at least a model number that's still available, or if somebody makes them, let me know, and I'll let me know in the comments, and I'll actually add it to the converters page on my site, because I'm really looking for a reliable link to something like that. Somebody without a name had posted a few times in the comments, which I didn't even realize you could do that. You must have all underscores as names, but I guess he didn't like the Firebrand X color palettes for NES for whatever reason. So first of all, if you don't like it, don't use it. But he'd posted things like, that's not how you come to that palette, that's not how you make it. I would really suggest that everybody try it before you knock it. It's subjective, of course, which is why Firebrand X made a whole bunch of different ones. But some people were, at least over the years, before they knew where the project came from and how much work has gone into it, a lot of people were quick to say, like, oh, why is that color palette better than another? Just try it for yourself. If you don't like it, don't use it. But definitely don't have preconceived notions of what it's going to be like until you actually try it, because I noticed massive difference in some games with his custom ones, and he even has different ones for CRTs and to use on flat screens. So definitely give it a shot. And lastly, Ray Commend posted a link to his review of the PowerBase Mini, and in the YouTube description of his link, he actually has a link to download the file that was the flyer for the Genesis case. So I'm not really sure what's the best way to call it. So, the little insert that goes inside the Genesis case, but it looks really awesome. I don't have a case for mine, but if I did, that's the one I would want in there. So cool review, and thanks for sharing the artwork with everybody, because that must have been a ton of work. Well, that's everything. There wasn't too many things, but I feel like I talked a lot this week. Sorry, I hope I didn't bore you guys to death. I'll try to speed it up and get it more to the point next time. But hopefully you guys stuck around for this, because I have a fun interview with Phonedork. Really nice guy, really awesome to talk to him finally, because I've been a fan of his videos for a long-ass time. And everybody subscribe to his channel if you can, because not only does he make entertaining and funny videos, they're really informative. I link to them all over my website, and some of the things that he does are really great examples of certain things. Anything from his lag tests to some of the CRT footage he gets. So I hope you guys enjoyed the interview, and any questions or comments, obviously post down below, and I'll see you guys next week. All right, guys, I am here with Phonedork. I'm almost disappointed. I kind of expected you to have your cowboy hat and the fake teeth in or something. Just opened up with a big old fuck you rant or something.
That's funny.
So, I'm obviously a big fan of your videos. I embed them on all the relevant pages on my site and everything, and I've been following you for a while. And I think you were one of the first people to put up videos about about the Sega Genesis ROM carts, I think, right? Didn't you get one of the original ones, like the blue weird ones from the Hong Kong
it's called
supplier?
it has, what is it called? The Neo Myth cart, which is
Right.
and I'm going to be talking about that on my next video. Actually, I'm going to go into that thing
Oh, yeah.
because that thing gave me so much. It gave me so much of a headache, because like, even I would go on the forums and like, this thing ain't working, or I would you have to basically use it looks like a Game Boy Advance cart, and you have to I guess clear the slots or whatever it is to put the games in.
Yeah.
So you buy 1,000 megabit cart, and when you clear it out, only 500 megabits is available. So I put on there like, I didn't pay for a 512 megabit cart. I paid for, 1,000, Oh, well, sometimes they're bad. Maybe you have to use an external power to supply everything. And I did all that, and it still wouldn't do it. And I would complain, and then they stop complaining on here. And it's like, well, you're not going to get help by you complaining. And I was like, what do you mean? I just gave you money, It's like
was the guy that was emailing you named Dr. Neo?
Yeah, he was one of them.
So I bought one of those, and I've always wanted to talk about this, but most people don't know what I'm talking about because you'd have to mess with it, otherwise it just wouldn't make any sense. But I bought this thing specifically because it did Sega CD backup RAM and because it did FM audio for the Master System stuff.
Which is all right.
I bought it, and then you had to plug, like you said, it looks like a Game Boy Advance cart. And if you didn't want to flash all the ROMs, you can buy something else that had a micro SD card slot in that. Yeah. So it looked like this weird tower of shit. I mean, it reminded me of like the 32X because you had to pile everything up on top of it. And I got it, and the Sega CD RAM didn't work at all, and the FM chip sounded bad. So I exchanged emails with that guy, Dr. Neo, and he refused to return it. And finally, he said, why don't you email this guy whose nickname was Chili Willy? He does programming for it. He'll help. So I don't think this guy is involved at all.
It's not his device. It's his device.
Right. And Chili Willy's a nice guy. He helped me out with that. But the shit never worked. And finally, I said, look, I really just want my money back. I'm going to go buy an EverDrive. I only really bought this for the FM audio. So then he said, well, I don't want to take it back. Can I just send you another one? All right, that's nice of you, but no, I don't think it's gonna work right. I just want my money back. And finally, I had to file a complaint through PayPal, and I mailed it back and everything, and that was the only way that he took it back. And I think he tried to dispute it and say that he never got it back, but the tracking number said returned. So, yeah, that's why it's I try really hard not to badmouth anybody. If sometimes I say things that come across the wrong way, I can't help it. I'm just an asshole sometimes. But this is one of the few times where I'm absolutely like, don't buy one of those Neo Myth carts. They don't work good, and the support is awful.
Well, they do work. I've gotten mine to work, but it is a headache. It is a headache. First off, the Master System FM software doesn't work if you put it through an SD card. You have to flash it to the cart, or it don't work. Yeah, I have the original. There's a version 2. So now they're like, well, you have to buy the version 2 one. And I was like, what about my version 1? There's no more support for it? I mean, I just spent, back in 2009, I think $200 or more for that thing.
Yeah, it was expensive.
It was very expensive. And, I can only flash so much. It's just, you got no support for it. And like I said, he shoots you off the Chili Willy, which the guy is nice. Don't get me wrong.
No, Chili Willy was very nice to me, always.
But it's not his product.
It's not his responsibility.
It's like, go to Chili Willy. I was like, whatever, man. Or he'll say, like, have some tea and be happy. Or, just anything. He'd say stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm not happy.
No. And it's the
I had
opposite with
one that
crits,
actually
right?
burned CD. I have an older one that I want to talk about. It's called a Mega Cart.
Oh, yeah?
And you actually had to have a Sega CD. You burn the games to the Sega CD, close the lid, put the cartridge in, and you burn the ROMs into the cart from the Sega CD.
That's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
did
it's
that.
kind of
It's
useless
just like-
nowadays with EverDrives and stuff, but it's still really neat. Where did you
it
find
did.
that?
It's an old one from Toto Tech.
Ah, wow, that's actually pretty cool.
But you can only, it had 24 megs of space, so you could either put 3 8 meg games on it, or one 16 meg and one 4 meg, or one 24 meg, or how many 4 megs, whatever. You have to make sure that you're within that 24 meg limit.
It's
megabit.
amazing how much has changed in just a few years. I just got an SD to SNES and put a 64 gig SD card in it, and have all those CD quality games on there all in one shot. What a big progression in just a few years.
Yeah, that's the one I got. I actually got that when it came out, the SD to SNES, and I love the thing. And I've been messing with the CD quality, whatever it is, music.
The MSU stuff, yeah, that was really great. And
I had a
some of them-
problem with it, though. Like, I would play Metroid, and if I chose that game and played it, my save wouldn't be there. It would have the music and everything, but my save wouldn't be there. So what I had to do was play the original, start it up, then I'd have to reset it, then start the one with the CD quality music, then it would show my save. I'm not sure why. I haven't updated my firmware either in a while, so I don't know if that may be the reason.
Yeah, there was only one save issue I ever had, and then before I even troubleshooted it, I realized I had an old firmware, so I put it up to the new one. But there's that key combination. It's like select, left, right, or something that sends you back to the SD to SNES
I didn't even
menu.
know about that.
Neither did I until I was doing an interview, actually, and somebody brought it up. But I feel like that's the best way to save your save game, and not using the reset method, because I don't want to slip or something one time and just lose all my game or anything. But so a lot of the other videos you did were about RGB monitors and the different ones. Which ones do you have now? Because I know you bought and sold a couple of them.
I still have the D24 E1W, whatever it's called, and now I got the BVM 14F5U, which I'll be talking about on my next video. And I didn't want to buy it. The only reason I bought it was because it came with this BKM 14L. He sold it with it.
Is that the suction cup thingy?
Yeah, it's the one that, let me see. Yeah, it's the suction cup doohickey.
I had never seen one of those until the other day, but my buddy Phil has one, and he hooked it up to my monitor. Have you tried it yet?
Yeah, I got perfect white balance.
Yeah, I was so impressed, and it took what, like 5 minutes or something?
Yeah, it does more than just white balance. It does beam landing, or white landing, or whatever you call it. I had problems with my D24 back here when I moved it upstairs. The focus was off, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I kept I thought maybe the magnets from the speakers was causing the issue. And I could not figure out what it was. I bought a degaussing coil, and I was able to get it to set back by doing the little whole spin thing or whatever. And then it kind of went back, but it wasn't perfect. Like certain whites, if the white was too bright, it would the screen would kind of go weird. It would fluctuate, or wouldn't give you a perfect geometry or anything. It'd be weird looking. So when I hooked this up, I went to white landing, and basically you start it up, and it says put the suction cup here, and you keep moving it and moving it and moving it, and then it set it to the magnetism of the earth. I don't know how it works, but it says you can do it yourself, but I wouldn't know where to fucking start with shit like that. So I just used this, and it was just like any dumbass could do it, including my dumbass, and it perfect. Now my colors are they're dead on. Basically what it did for the white balance was it just shows a white screen, and you put the suction cup on the white screen, and I guess it does various tone levels or grays and whites, just to make sure that you get a perfect white, and the best white you can get. And then after that, everything look great, even in component. All the everything like it wasn't too blue or too red or none of that no more. Of course, some people may not like that because not like it when it's perfectly white balance because some people want to pump vibrance into it and make it more
It's
colorful.
like the people that put their TV on vivid mode.
Yeah, they'll do that. They may not like it, but I prefer it. I don't really care for like oversaturation because even when I do pictures, I don't oversaturate a picture. I try to get it as perfect balance as I can. But
now you do your own geometry settings on your monitors as well, right?
yeah.
Any tricks to that, or just be really patient and take your time?
Um, it's there's no real easy way to do it. And I was never taught how to do it, you know. So and I don't know if there's any videos on it or anything like that, but I find it harder to do the bulbish type sets to get the geometry perfect just because it kind of curves in the front. And it's way easier to do it on the flat screen. It really is because that thing's flat. So it's easier, you know, to mess with it because you don't have to compensate for the bubble in the middle or whatever because it kind of bulbs out on some of these BBMs. But I just think of it as a pillow. You know, you move this, you move this, you move the middle of it, you know, just like it says pincushion. I just think of a pillow. And
That's a good analogy.
That's the only way. I stretch this, and then this stretches, you know, I stretch this, it stretches. Okay, I need to move this one out that way to compensate, and this. And I go back between squares and circles. So I'll go to a square, and then I'll get it right. Then I'll go back to circles and try to make my circles right. And then I'll go back to my squares, and my squares are fucked up again. And then I have to, like, fuck with it. Then I go back to my circle's fucked up. And I keep going back and forth until eventually you have, like, something perfect. As perfect as it's going to get.
That's the only way I've ever done it, too. I was always wishing somebody would teach me some kind of secret. But do you know, on the newer TVs, I mean, it's only in the past few years, and I think it's only on, you know, not the best of the best, but the higher end. You could buy these calibration kits where you put like the 7 or 8 suction cups on it, and then you plug it into the USB port of the TV, and you walk away. It does everything for you. It interfaces with the menu. You don't have to touch anything. It does everything from geometry to white balance.
Yeah. Some of them are not even a suction cup. It's like a camera facing the TV, and it does it.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing. Well,
this one, it's similar. Like I said, it's the BKM 140 is really awesome. Matter of fact, if you got a D32, if you want to use it, let me know. I'll send it to you, and I'll show you. You'll get like this extremely awesome, perfect white balance. It's crazy.
No, my buddy doesn't live far away from me, and he's got one. So I'm definitely, he already did mine, and anybody else I know that lives around here who's got a BVM, I'm gonna make sure we just have like a, you know, big old case of beer and then just go from house to house. You know, just at least it's small too, so we can throw that in a bag and take it on the subway. It's not like we have to worry about it, but
right.
So now the 14-inch one, I'm assuming it's the square one, right? It's not the one that has the 16:9 bezel stuck in it.
No, you could put the 16:9 bezel in it, but mine's got the 4x3. I'm not gonna do that. I don't even like 16:9 bezels on a 4x3 because you lose resolution when you do it because you squish it down, and like mine is a true 16:9. So when you run 16:9, it's true rather than squishing it and then trying to stretch it wide. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of the old systems work on that anamorphic widescreen, you know, like the Wii U or the Wii anyway.
The Wii,
I feel like it's not really a 16:9 resolution. It's really a 4x3, and you're just relying on kind of stretching it because the games don't really look like the resolution just looks like it's just stretched. It's like they squish their characters in, and you whatever you call it, stretch them out to make it look right.
Yeah, somebody on one of the forums were showing that, I think last year or something. They had pictures of it, you know, on a 4x3 and on a 16:9, and they were showing the differences, and it didn't look like it didn't look like it opened up 2 extra, you know, channels of space. It looked like it was a little bit more stretched, but maybe that's only for one game. Maybe each game is different or something.
Certain games, like Super Mario Galaxy, it does look like 16:9. It looks nice, but then some of them, if you set it for Super Mario Galaxy and you set it for like another game that's supposed to be widescreen, it looks more narrow. It doesn't take up as much horizontal, space as the other one does. So,
Yeah, I think some games are 16:9 only on the Wii, so that's the ones that would look good as widescreen, definitely. So I just can't remember off the top of my head. I think there's a shmups page on that or something. So
yeah.
So out of all the ones that monitors you've had, because you've had regular PVM 14 inches, now you have a BVM 14 inch, all those, is the D24 your favorite so far, or is that
By far. The second to it would have been the 20 F1U. I hated to get rid of that monitor. I actually sold it, but that monitor was pretty awesome. I did like it. I just didn't like the fact that it didn't support 480p and 720p.
So you had the 20 F1U?
Yeah, I had the 20 F1U, not the A21. I think one of them does 480p.
Yeah,
I don't know which
the
one
A
it is.
and the D, because the one I just got is the D20 F1U, and that's the 900 line monitor that does everything, and it's still 4x3, because most of the games I play are the older ones anyway, and it's the best. That and the 32-inch version of yours are the two best monitors I've ever had.
Right.
The only thing I will say though is the XM29, and then I had that one, and then the Mitsubishi Megaview. I think it's like 40 inches or something. They're not.
Yeah.
They're almost like really, really high end consumer grade TVs. Like they look better than an RGB modded, consumer CRT, which those still look
Like
amazing.
the DC?
Yeah, but the size of them alone, like anytime you want to play a light gun game or like the two good Sega 3D games like that, just having the size, I would actually take that over the quality just for those, those few things. But overall, I mean, how often do people play 3D or light gun games? You know what I mean? So compared to the other ones, you don't sit and play Duck Hunt for 2 hours, but you sit and play.
No, I like Gumshoe though.
Yeah.
Gumshoe.
So that is the only thing, but yeah, I mean, I've never been so impressed with something until I started using those BVMs. It's just way above and beyond.
They are. Those PVMs are good. I like the 20L5. That's a really good monitor.
Yep, I think the BVM technician said that's the same tube that's in the D20L5. No, the D20F1U. It's stuck in a PVM shell without all the calibration options, so it's still very close to that good of a picture.
But it's 800 lines though, right? That one's 800. 20L5 is 800 line.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
And the 20F1U is actually 900, so I wonder how it's like the same.
Yeah.
Because the 20F1U is a 900 line monitor, and it did look better than the 20L5 to me, by far. I thought it did. That's just my opinion. Some people might say it's the same, but from what I saw, and I had two 20L5s that I had back in the day, and neither one of them could compare to the 20F1U that I could see.
Yeah, it's fun playing through, like, anytime I play a new game, it's always great to appreciate it. Like I'm just playing Rondo of Blood for the first time, and it's awesome.
Me too.
I'm so glad I get to play it on a
Super
BVM.
Nintendo one.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm playing. Yeah.
But I mean, I love that experience. But playing Metroid and Zelda on the Super Nintendo, I played those games so much that just by looking at a couple of screens, I could immediately tell the difference in the monitor. Just because I've been staring at those games since I was a kid, so. Those are always my benchmarks for anytime I use something. And that's why I really, I just decided the FrameMeister wasn't for me, because I could tell the lag. I mean, the lag for me, 1.5 to 2 plus 2 frames of lag on my TV, 4 frames is like, for a lot of that precision stuff, it's just too much for me.
And I'm reviewing the OSSC. That's part of my.
I'm looking forward to your opinion on that. They're always doing new updates to it and adding, small new features. So definitely check those out. Yeah, just
an audio upgrade on mine. So I was very impressed with that thing. And like I said before, I think I've talked about this before between the YCB or YPB PR versus the RGB color space, and that thing it shows you the difference immediately, because the OSSC uses the RGB color space, and you can tell the difference, like really tell the difference.
I actually didn't know that hold on. Sorry. I didn't realize that it did 444 true RGB color. And the
Yes.
only reason I noticed is because I knew the OSSC was coming in. I got the tracking number. So I asked my buddy Wes from Second Opinion Games. He sent me his Framemeister, and I played it for, I think I was playing through Link to the Past, so I could do that in, a couple hours now, like 5 or 6 hours or something.
That's
So
pretty
I've been
good.
playing it over the course of a couple of days.
Okay.
And then the OSSC comes in, and I just unplug it, plug in the OSSC, and turn it on. And it was just in 480p mode, not, I was playing the Framemeister in 5x. And I just went, holy shit, what is this? Why is this so much better? And that's when I started reading through and realizing that the colors, that's why.
Yeah. A lot of people will say that the component, or the, I don't know what you call it, the YUV color space is just as good as the RGB color space. And not even close. I mean, anytime, you got to know that the component color space, or the YUV or YCB, whatever it's called, I always forget. It's a condensed form of RGB. It's not quite the same. RGB, like for instance, when I shoot pictures and I shoot in raw format, it's all RGB levels.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I develop it to a JPEG, then it goes to a YCBC or whatever it is. It goes to that other color space, the condensed color space, to a JPEG.
Right.
But the JPEG would be like 14 megabytes, but my raw format is like 36 megabytes. Like, it's way bigger.
Yep.
So, and then when I was recording with the X Capture versus my what is it? I have an X Capture from Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I have the Elgato 60 height HD 60 or whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually borrowing that for the first time. I just got an X Capture thing, so it's like, it's great. But when
you need a powerful computer,
yeah.
I use an i7 on this thing with a solid state drive, and I can't record 1080p 60 frames per second to save my life. It's like stutters,
Wow.
I can do 720p, but I found out it's recording at RGB levels. At least
On the
that's what
Elgato, you mean, right?
No, the X Capture.
Is it really?
Supposed to. That's what I read. I'm not sure how true that is, but I was wondering, is that the reason why it's it's so much worse than the Elgato? Because the Elgato, it records in anytime, even on YouTube, you're using the condensed colors.
Oh yeah. As far as I know, the only one that I was using for a while was the one, the StarTech.com one, which I thought was the same chip. I could be wrong. So this is, I had to lend some friends my capture card, so I ended up borrowing this one from my buddy Jose. But I'm not really sure. I thought that those were in 422, but I don't know about the X Capture. I'll have to look that up.
I read it. I remember reading about it, and I was thinking, is that true? And I was like, if that's true, then that's the reason why I'm having problems trying to record at 60 frames a second. And I think that may be the issue. But with different people, the way they talk, there's no telling who is telling the truth or what. So
yeah,
I'm not saying
I
that
like to test it for
that's
myself
what I read.
before I do anything, before I do anything else. Because the one that I've been working on now, I can't remember the name of the company. Is it Epiphone something? But they have a DVI to USB 3, and that definitely does the full color space. And between that StarTech.com and that one, you could easily see the difference side by side in the pictures.
Right.
So,
well, I don't know. Like, if you look, I think one of my videos I did with it when I was talking about the Nintendo 64, and I was recording Mario 64 footage, and that's the first time I used the X Capture card. And that video was in 720p. Okay. That footage that I used in there was actually 240p.
Oh,
I assumed that it was gonna scale it, but I was wrong. It didn't scale it. My post processing scaled it. But if you actually look at that video, you can see how colorful Mario is in there. It's pretty color. It was more. I thought it was more colorful than when I recorded directly from the Ultra HDMI. It was really vivid.
Huh,
and I didn't do any type of post processing to it. But if you look at it, the reds are like incredible on it. And I was like, so I tried to record it again, and then I was like, I thought it was upscaling, but it wasn't. I guess my Final Cut was upscaling it, but it was kind of stretching it, so it wasn't really like a really good scale.
Mm.
But though it was a terrible scale, the colors were really, really, really vivid on it. I was surprised.
So is that I guess that's why your quest for sync on green on a lot of these is to bypass the component encoders. So I know on the PlayStation 2 that's kind of a known issue where you can't, I guess you could really mostly just see it on flat screens, but it does have kind of a noisy component encoder. So by going to sync on green with those, you just kind of bypass it and get the direct RGB colors through those.
Yeah.
Now you said that you'd been doing that with Xbox as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So could you just explain a little bit about how that works? Because I haven't. I've been meaning to get an Xbox page up on the site, but I'm like 6 months behind. So
you can't have a certain model. The Halo editions, I think the 1.2, 1.4, I think are fine. I think it's the 1.6 Xboxes. You cannot do sync on green. It's weird because I think mine's a 1.2 or 4. I can't remember what it is. And I just loaded some, just I guess like the basic whatever. I can't even remember what it was.
So do you have a mod chip on there, or do you actually flash the BIOS on that?
I just flashed it.
Okay.
And
so you had to open up the motherboard and like solder the 2 points together and then just flash it like that?
No. I just went on eBay and I ordered like this USB thing that hooks to the controller, and then I just bought the game. I forgot what game it was to install the soft mod. It was the Ghost Recon, or I don't know which one it was, but what specific game it was. Put it in there, loaded it up, and then I just chose sync on green on the BVM and hooked it up, and it wouldn't do it. So I went to component, and then it went to component, and then I would turn it off, like completely off, then put it back on the sync on green and turn it back on, and then it would start off at 480i component, so it wasn't right, and then it would go off, and then all of a sudden sync on green. I don't know why it did it, or there was nothing. I didn't do anything at all as far as hardware wise to it. It automatically did it. And I know it's sync on green because I'll switch the component and the colors are off big time. Like, I have to go back to RGB for the colors to be correct.
Right.
And so, there was a huge difference in, because sync on green was just VGA, The only problem with sync on green was if you were playing widescreen games, 16:9, it wouldn't work in RGB sync on green because when you play it in RGB sync on green, it wants to use square pixels. It doesn't want to use rectangular. So everything is 4:3, like it's dead on.
Because it stays with the VGA resolution modes.
Right. So everything is square pixels. You can try to use the 16:9, but it looks like crap. But if you stick it in component and then you run it through, then it would go in true 16:9. Then it would use the rectangular pixels for the anamorphic widescreen that the Xbox does or whatever it is. Not quite sure if it's a true widescreen or not either. It's kind of hard to say because certain games look like they're true, like Halo or Halo 2. They look like true wide, but then you got games that say they're wide but don't really look wide. They just look kind of stretched, So I mean.
So there's two things that I'm not quite clear about. So when Xbox was the popular console, I got really good at modding them, and I got I built the little things to do it. I would take off. You'd have to solder, or you would just have to jump two parts together on the motherboard, and all that jumper that you added was allow the BIOS to be flashed, and then I would have to flash the BIOS using that boot chip, and then that would tell it to boot in any mode you wanted. But I haven't done that. It's got to be over 10 years since I've done that. So if anybody watching is an expert modding or an Xbox modding expert, post in the comments about how to get the right one. Because I do know that there is a hardware mod you could do that's true VGA. So you actually get RGB HV. You could put a little connector on the back. But that definitely requires another BIOS, and it's kind of a complicated hardware mod. So I wonder, if somebody could walk through the steps, and maybe I'll make a guide of it if I could figure it out. But the other question I have, too, is these consoles. So HD consoles are all meant for HDMI. And then anything like N64, PS1, and back, that was all, excuse me, designed for RGB. But what about PS2, GameCube, and maybe one other one in that era? Um, I guess the PS2, Xbox, and the Wii, and GameCube, were those games encoded and designed to be run in the 422 component color space? Were they made in the full RGB color space and then converted out? So I know, like, the only conversation I remember is when people were talking about the GameCube. When you put that HDMI board in it, it does the chroma up conversion to 444. So I don't know. I think I hope an expert is watching this and could chime in, because I'm still a little confused on each of the consoles and which of the ones it's really worth doing all these extra mods to or not. I think PS2 is obviously an exception because some of the issues with the component chip in there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still really confused about that. Maybe it's just over my head and I'm not smart enough to figure it out yet. But I'll get there eventually, I guess. But, yeah,
I don't really think the VGA mod for the Xbox is a necessity. I think Sync on Green is just as good. It's the same thing. It's just you got to have a Sync on Green compatible monitor, and you have the OSSC now that can actually take it. And I haven't tried it yet. I'm actually hoping to try that when my OSSC gets back. I want to run Sync on Green through it to see if it had that reddish level that the Framemeister had, remember?
Yeah.
Because of negative sync polarity issue. I actually got an RX RGB with an Extron RGB, one of them. I think it's a 202, 203. I don't know which one it is, but it has the negative polarity switch, so you can switch it off or on. So I'm wondering if I mess with that, will that change the color?
So
to match.
That actually reminds me, you had a problem a while back. So with BVMs, it's like buying a really, really fancy car. You got to put more work into it. So you can't just plug and play like a PVM. And I think we had to put both of our BVMs into VCR mode for it to be fully compatible. And then when running through the Extron, we had that turn the serration on and off. But didn't you say you opened yours up and found another jumper in there that you had to? Because wasn't it the very top of the image kind of curved to one side?
Yeah, you actually said the fix for it. I didn't need it. I just needed to go into my maintenance mode and activate VCR mode. And after that, everything worked. Every freaking thing worked.
I didn't realize that myself when I first got my BVM. I think it was about the same time you emailed me. I had no idea how to work it. I was still kind of learning.
There was a way to change negative sync polarity by running a jumper inside, and there was documentation on it. But rather than doing that, I got the RX 202, not the 203. It's one of them. I don't know if I have to go downstairs and grab it, but like it has the negative sync switch on it. You can turn it to positive or negative. You can has a switch on it, which the 203 doesn't. And with that one, I was able to get games to sync with my BVM without the VCR mode on.
Interesting.
But it was weird because some of my 480i stuff was looking weird. And then I guess it was trying to downscale it sometimes to that weird 240p like look. Which, I'm sorry, when you downscale 480i to 240p, it's like some of the image is gone. Like it's not meant. To me, it's not really meant to look like 240p because I feel like half the image is gone. Like because with 480i you have odd and even scan lines that go back and forth between each other. Trying to fool you into thinking all 480 lines are drawn when they're really not. But like with when you erase half the image, it looked funny to me, even on a BVM. I wasn't really a fan of it, to tell you the truth. I prefer the real 480i look over it than downscale.
I was never able to get that 480i to 240p working on any of my PVMs. It worked on the XM29, and then I don't think I've tried it since, to be honest with you. I think on the XM29, it didn't look great. I didn't like it. I'd rather just play it in 480i mode.
Yeah, I like the 480i. How are you liking your Retro Pi?
I absolutely love it. So I'm not a big fan of emulation of consoles just because I'm lucky enough to have bought all the consoles over the years because I don't want to mess with it. But it's impossible for me to get all of the arcades, even if I was rich and had the space to do it. Do I really want 300 arcade games sitting somewhere? And even some of the boards, like the Mortal Kombat board's this big. I can't even build a super gun out of it because it's freaking huge.
It's ridiculous.
So having a MAME emulator, I'm totally okay with. I've just come to terms with the fact that it's minimum of 2 frames of lag, even on a CRT. And I could, I was never like a competitive gamer with fighting games. I just really liked them.
Fighting games suck on it. It is a little laggish.
I found on a CRT though, I could play Mortal Kombat and not hate it. It's not, it's not going to be. I'm not going to lose my mind over it. But I just, I love the Raspberry Pi for that, and I love the whole MAME setup I have now. I've
been having, it's funny since I got the NT Mini. What's funny is it came later. I had the Raspberry Pi first, and then I couldn't figure out how to work the damn thing. And then eventually I downloaded somebody's disk that they already made. It was like 128 gigabyte, whatever. And I did that one. And then it didn't have all the emulators that I wanted in it. And then I learned how to add them and then, sync my computer to it through the IP and add stuff. But it's been really fun because, you have this a really awesome front end, and it's funny because I've been out of emulation since 2000, probably 6. I used to be nothing but emulation. I used to be like MAME.exe space the ROM name minus kit minus J enter, and then I remember all that, and then this thing, and it's like you have a front end called the RetroArch or something. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. I hear so much about it, but I knew nothing about the damn thing. But when you bring up the options, it works in conjunction with the emulator itself or the core, which now they call everything a core. I was like, what's a core? I didn't even know what a core was. I was like, that's how long I've been out of emulation. I was like, we call them emulators. I don't remember the term core. But anyway, it works with the core, and you can integer scale. I'm doing integer scaling on my RetroPie. At least on the vertical axis, not on the horizontal. Of course, it always tries to do a 4x3. Right. But that's okay because I don't see the issues that I've seen with some of the hardware emulation with the NT. Like I don't see the shimmering. Mm-hmm. I don't see that at all. Yeah, there is a little lag, but I'm having fun. Like I'm a big Atari 5200 fan and Atari 8-bit, and I sold mine recently. A while back because it's just too big, and then you had to buy a controller to make the stupid controller work. It's horrible.
I got it sitting right next to me underneath the desk.
I have one if you want one. I got a 4-port Atari 5200 if you want. It's S-Video mod. It's lame, but the best thing, if you love the 5200, get the Atari 800 XL. Get that. It's the same thing. It's just digital controller without the crap, you got the keyboard where the keyboard needs to be,
and that's the computer version of it, right?
Yeah,
and then it still plays the cartridge games and everything
or whatever. Yeah, so I was thinking about, you were talking about a 5200 RGB. I remember on one of your things you were talking about, and then but there was also one from Loratec or something like that. I can't remember, but there was an RGB mod for the Atari 8-bit, and it actually did some other things to make it better. And I was actually thinking about buying that thing. Of course, I don't know how to mod, so I had to hire somebody to do it. But I was actually considering, but I was like, God, I got to buy another 800. I got to buy this thing. I got to send it to him if he wants to mod it, then I got to pay for him to send it back. Then I'm not going to buy cards for this. I'm going to find a way to flash drive it, and there is a way. I got to buy that. And I'm looking at all this money I got to spend, and I was like, good Lord. So when I popped in this RetroPie and then I was able to load the emulators, I lost interest completely in doing that. I was like, oh, I'm having fun. I'm playing it on a flat screen right now, and if I wanted to play it on a CRT, I could, Yep. But I'm actually pretty fine with emulating it. I have pretty sure the real thing might be a little bit better, no lag or whatever, but for the type of games that you play on that stuff, that little lag really is not noticeable. and I'm okay with it. You know, Nintendo game's a different story. If you have even the slightest lag on that, you know, you're screwed. You can't play Mega Man. You can't play Ninja Gaiden. You can't play Ghost and Goblins. You're gonna have issues. You're gonna be like, I pressed the jump button. I don't know why I fell in the hole. You know, it's.
Anytime somebody asks me to describe lag, I send them to your Mega Man 2 video, to that part in that video where you were trying to make the jumps with the falling platforms. In my mind, that is the perfect demonstration of what happens when you have lag. So
right. And I've actually made it through the RetroPie, that scene, no problem. Actually,
that's funny.
I actually made it through. It was a little complicated, but I could tell there was a little lag. I was definitely scared.
Well, I'm pretty sure that RetroPie is going to have less lag than that upscaler that you were using. Because when I bought mine, I think it had 8 or 9 frames of lag or something like that. No, maybe it wasn't that bad, but it was still really bad. I mean, it was insane that many. Maybe 5 or 6, but then no, I think it was 5 or 6 frames of lag plus the lag that was on my TV made it like 6 or 7 frames, and that I hate that thing. It's good for just basic streaming where you're playing through a CRT and then streaming out to that, but that's yeah.
That thing will take any kind of sync. That's the one thing that's good about it.
Really, mine won't. Mine will only work on TTL sync.
Oh wow.
But just like any other one of those products, there's probably 30 revisions of them all in the same box,
Yeah. Well, what I was trying to say is when I got the RetroPie, I've been playing it so long, I'm just having a blast with it, And I'm playing all these old arcade games, and it's just really cool. And yeah, there was some issues, but it wasn't stopping me from having a great time. And then when I got the NT Mini, I was like, this is cool. And I was playing it for a little bit. Then I find myself going back to the RetroPie again because I'm like, there's other stuff to play. So I was like, but then the crack was pretty cool because I love the ColecoVision. I can't wait till he does the 2600 and the 7800 when he jailbreaks that Mini.
Yeah.
I love the 7800. I have a 7800, and S-Video is just terrible on it. I have an S-Video modded 7800. I'm not a big fan of it. It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
But,
so what are the games? Because I vaguely remember a story. I think you were on the My Life in Gaming live stream when you were saying you got into all this because of the 5200, right? Your RGB. Yeah, you want to tell that story again? And then you also definitely got to tell the games that you were talking about because I forgot to go back because I want to play those games now.
Okay. Okay, a lot of people will say that, like, if you say, like, what's your number one game of all time? A lot of people will say, like, Legend of Zelda or something Nintendo-wise, I'm 42 years old. I go back to the 2600, so like my favorite game will always be adventure, like the little square, the stupid 3 dragons, the key, the magnet. To this day, I can always pick that game up and play it because it's random. It's never the same. It's just it's a problem solving game, really. And I love that you got to like figure out how to do something or whatever. And yes, the 2600 had really bad graphics, but you kind of used your mind to fill in the gaps. You're like, oh yeah, that's not really a square. That's a little elf with a sword. It's like you had to actually, you knew that in your head because you saw the cartridge and it's like, yeah, that's that guy right there. So anyway, the Atari 5200, they had an Adventure 2 for the Atari 5200. And I was like, what? Where can I download the ROM so I can emulate it? Because I don't want to buy a 5200, And I couldn't find the ROM. And I was like, the only way you're going to play this is actually buy the cartridge and get a real 5200. And that's what I ended up doing just to play this one freaking game.
And was it good? Was the game worth it? Adventure 2?
Oh, yeah. Ron Lloyd, the creator of that game, he did a really awesome job on it. It stayed very similar to the Atari 2600 and, a little bit better graphics, whatever, but still the same. You're still a square, it was a really good game. And then after that, I found myself collecting for the 5200, which is hard to, and when I was collecting for it is when that Angry Video Game Nerd video came out where he's making fun of it. And I was like, yeah, it's true. It sucks. I'm like, God, But
Well,
so I
wasn't
had to.
that the video too, where he was complaining that he couldn't use one of them because the RF thing broke off? He couldn't screw it into the
Yeah,
TV. I I,
he had
I
the.
love the angry video game nerd. He's the reason why I actually started to get back into old games. But I was furious because when I was a kid, I mean, I know I was always kind of a nerd, but like when those things would wear out, I'd cut them off. Like I'd wait to cut them off to twist the wire because you'd get a better connection. Like, what do you
Right.
mean, dude? You're supposed to be the nerd. Why don't you know that?
Yeah. Nah, he's like the nerd, but I don't think he's very he knows a lot of that stuff already. I think he's just trying to be funny for the most part.
Yeah, I still love the videos, but yeah. So you had
Yeah.
to just hook it up with RF. Then did you get a tube TV for that? Did you try to get one of those RF modulators that go to composite?
I did that, and then I did an S video. I actually got a review of the 5200. It's one of my older videos on my Phonedork channel, and I that's actually my least amount of views is the 5200. It's funny because like nobody gives a shit. Yeah, it's weird. Like nobody cares about the Atari 5200. I love it. But I had just about every game on it. I collected for it. Like I even had Mule, which was a conversion from the 8-bit, and I'm a big fan of Mule. It's basically a sci-fi board game, where you're trying to like it's weird. It's so competitive. I can't really explain it. Maybe you'll look it up one day, Mule.
Well,
But
Mule is, I mean, I'm gonna make a note of all these so when I get mine modded,
yeah,
I know which games to try. So
yeah, that one is a really good game. Yeah, there's was it Space Dungeon, which is basically like a little spaceship, that little UFO that flies in between the rooms, and you had to actually connect both 5200 controllers together, like they're two analog. You had a slot where you slide one and on the left, and slide one on the right, and you move one to move the ship, the other one to shoot in the direction you want. So it's kind of like playing Robotron. Just think of Robotron, but you can think of
yeah,
Robotron and the game Venture
huh,
mixed together. You
huh.
go into different rooms and you just kill stuff. So there's just a lot of games, and then my ex girlfriend back in the day, she used to like hate that thing. She goes, "Why can't you get a Nintendo or something that's fun?" I'm having fun. It's like whatever. I had like my little room where I had the 5200. Then I bought a ColecoVision later. That was my next one. Then I bought a 7800, and then I didn't buy a Nintendo till I went to Puerto Rico and was working there for about a year, and I decided to buy a Nintendo. And then I wanted the Famicom. I wanted to make sure it had the RF, or the not the RF, but the composite out at least.
Right.
And I got that. Then I bought I guess what is it, the one before the EverDrive. It was for the
The
Nintendo.
Power
I can't
Pack.
remember.
Power
Power
Pack.
Pack. I just got that one, and then I started playing all the games. And then I was never really a collector of Nintendo games. They were just too expensive. I just felt like everybody wants to collect for them. And I had one game for it, and that was Castlevania 3. And because it had like the sound chip in it or whatever for the Japanese version.
Yeah.
I have that one. And that's the only Famicom game I actually own. Then I just went on to collecting RGB monitors later when I came back to Phoenix, when I was talking about converting RGB to component, and then I heard people like, you could just get a real RGB monitor and not have to worry about that. And I was like, really, there's such a thing? And I was looking at them; they look so ugly when they show the video. And I was like, this thing is ugly, And then I saw some guy near me on eBay. He was selling a 20L5, and I bought both of them for $60, literally.
What?
Yeah. There was one on my video, and then one of them had the scratch on the cover, but I ended up removing the plastic,
You removed
whatever
the
it
plastic
was.
for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, it's scratched anyway. Let's see what's down there. And then somebody said, don't do it. It'll mess it up. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I just tore it off, and then like, oh, nice. There's not even a scratch on it, and it was really good after that. Then after that, I started collecting more consoles. Neo Geo was the next one. You have to be a freaking millionaire to collect for that damn thing.
That's why I'm so glad that ROM cart is coming out. Well, there's two coming out for it now, so
Right.
I can't wait to get mine to try that. I could finally play Neo Geo games for real.
Right. Yeah, that's an expensive one to collect
There's
for.
no way I could afford to collect that one. I could barely afford the console and the ROM cart. I think I got one game with
Well,
it, and that
they
might
want
be.
to sell the. What do they want to sell the ROM cart for the Neo Geo? Like $600?
Including shipping, the Neo SD was 500, and Darksoft hasn't announced a price yet, but he's probably going to make it a tiny bit cheaper.
Oh, well,
It's still a lot of money, but I mean, my cousin's favorite
much.
game is Windjammer's favorite Neo Geo game, and that's like $1,000 if you want to buy just that one game.
Oh, yeah, I love that game. I bought a Neo Geo CD and just burned the CD. Having a great time with it right now. And
Yeah.
there's hardly any load time on it, too. But
The Neo Geo CD is a great way to try a lot of that library without spending all the money.
Yeah, you can't play like the more complicated. Hammers is not complicated, and it's
No.
$1,000 versus just burning it. And I could literally burn any Neo Geo CD game ever.
And there's no loading time during the game. It's only before the
Pretty
match.
much.
So.
It's hardly any loading time at all on it because it has like a 7 megabyte or RAM or something. I can't remember what it is, but it loads a lot of the game in the beginning, and then after that, it pretty much plays from it, except for the music. I think the music constantly streams. But then they got cracks now where they actually load the entire Neo Geo game into that RAM, and you don't have any load time at all. They've done it with Baseball Stars 2. They've done it with a few of them. There's a few cracks that I've actually downloaded and did it, and then there's no load time at all.
Jeez, that's pretty cool.
But you won't be able to do it with the more, like I said, complicated games.
Right.
You're talking 4 megabit games, things like that. Maybe, under the 100 megabit range, you'll probably be okay.
It's funny. The day I got a great deal on a Neo Geo CD, and the day I got it, it just so happened to be talking to a buddy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the load times are miserable. You're gonna get so annoyed." And I'm playing on it. I kind of just burned some CDs just to make sure it worked, and then I headed over to his house, and we're playing a PS3 game, and it's like a minute and a half. It was Mortal Kombat. It's like a minute and a half loading time before the match. I'm like, the Neo Geo CD didn't take this long. What are you shitting on it for? It's fine.
Well, that's what I mean. That's your guys who are like, you got to have the real Neo Geo, and anything else sucks, So you got those guys that will put down the fact that the CD's load time is a little longer, but it's not really that bad. I mean, if you don't like the Sega CD, if you don't like PlayStation or anything, the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, then you wouldn't like the Neo Geo CD. But nobody had a problem with it before. Yes, the cartridge is instantaneous, but I'll tell you what,
some people have a problem with the Sega CD.
The quality of the Neo Geo CD is better than my AES cart version.
So that is without a doubt true.
It is nuts.
A bunch of people have finally nailed down why, and a couple of fixes are in place. And the best one I've tested, should be released in about a month, so maybe a little longer. So if you want, when your AES is when you're ready to do it, I'll put you in touch, and I'll have more news obviously when it's ready. But if you send it out, it'll come back with perfect crystal clear RGB video output, as good if not better than the Neo Geo CD.
Wow, nice.
And I mean, it's not going to be expensive. It's not going to be as expensive as a controller for the Neo Geo, let alone any of the crazy games. So I feel like anybody that has an AES, really, especially if they play it through an RGB monitor or a good upscaler, I feel like this is a must. If you've already spent that much money on the console and the collection, just having a small upgrade, and the only thing I think it's going to be installer only, because it is a little bit more complicated. It's not like the SNES Mini where you could just drop the board in and solder 4 wires to it. So,
right.
But yeah, I'm excited about that one. I can't wait to post the before and after pictures too, because it's big difference.
Is he going to make it where you don't have to draw the stereo from the front? Because I can't stand that. That's one of the things I hate.
So
I hate that
will
you
be an option.
Out the front of the AES and plug it in. I want a mod where stereo comes out from the SCART output of the back. I can't stand that wire that comes out in the front. Can't stand it.
Now, that's absolutely an option. The only thing is, I think you would just have to have the output connector changed or something. But once again, that's why I think it's going to be installer only. So, I mean, absolutely. And I agree. That's kind of bullshit,
I kind of want one of those ones where they transform like the Neo Geo Arcade into the the console. I think those are awesome because they got the stereo coming from the output, and they got really great RGB levels on those, really good quality.
Yep. The only
I mean,
thing I'm going to say is with these new ROM cards, you could have both ROM sets on it. You're going to be able to have the arcade and the home all through your home console. So at that point, you might as well, if you already have an AES, you might as well just use that.
Right.
I would like a stand-up MVS. I don't know why. I just think it would be really cool to have.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. They still have them. Actually, they're destroying them actually just to get the boards out of them to make these some of these consoles. They have to I don't know if those arcade units are already screwed, and that's the reason why they're doing it. But yeah,
I think a lot of the arcade a lot of the arcade machines are really beat up now. I think especially if they were ever warehoused and there was water damage, you got to gut the entire thing, or you could just take out the guts and make a consoleized version of it. So,
right.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope that people aren't taking awesome arcade cabinets and ruining them.
Oh yeah, my first Nintendo with the RGB mod used a real PPU or whatever it is from a arcade unit. On my very first review on the RGB Nintendo, when I was talking about it, that was a real RGB
Me too.
modded.
I still have mine actually. I don't know why. I refuse to sell it. Yep.
I actually like the color levels on it, especially on games like Super Mario 2 and
Contra,
Super Mario.
I thought looked better with the arcade colors.
Yeah, it did. It looked really good. But like Legend of Zelda looked like shit.
Yeah.
There was a few of them that looked really, really bad.
Yeah, I think everybody knows your story about your NES console, about your AV Famicom. That was that was. I don't even like saying that guy's name out loud. Draken or something. Yeah, that was just shitty. I don't know. So
yeah, I let it go, man. I don't like to hold grudges, and I don't wish anybody bad. Yeah, I was mad at the time, but you
deserve to be mad, but you handled it nicely. It's you could have acted a lot differently, and you chose not to. So it's
No, I didn't. He was a certain way. I'm pretty sure he regrets doing shitty mods now because what's going on. But he can't do anything now. Anytime he pokes his head out, he's pretty much gonna get obliterated unless he likes hides his name. But speaking of shitty mods, how about that Dual Dance crap? I have one of the PC engines right now. It was one of the trade-ins when I traded my 20F1U, and that was what part of the deal was the PC engine. So I never really bought it, So now I got a RGB modded PC engine, or the Duo R from Dual Dance, and that thing has the jail bars are really bad on that thing, and I mean it looks better on the BVM, but if you play it on XRGB or anything like that, it's really really bad. And then somebody opened up one, and it looked like somebody cum shot all over the fucking board. So
Well, what was worse is the Dual Dance was using 2-part epoxy to hold some stuff in. So as much as everybody likes to make fun of hot glue, yours was really bad, but your average, dab of hot glue that you put over a chip or something, you could remove that carefully with some alcohol. To get the epoxy off is insane. It takes forever. Then he had boards wrapped in bubble wrap. It was, I don't know. I got to reach out to him. Maybe he just doesn't know that he's doing a bad job. Maybe he just thinks because it works on his monitor, it's fine. But I don't think. I wonder if anybody's ever actually asked him about that and said, "Hey, do you know that you're not doing it right?"
I definitely have. After you guys talk about it, somebody's gonna bring it up. He knows about it already, I'm sure. There's no way he don't know. I mean, the modding community is very tight. They're if somebody's fucking up, believe me, they're tattletaling. They're telling, they're gonna, this motherfucker here. It's how it is.
But it's sometimes people go overboard, but for the most part, it's really justified because it's like, with the exception of some trolls that always like to shit on people, if somebody's doing their own work for themselves and they post pictures, you very often get constructive criticism. Some people are better than others. Some people are like, damn, that's shitty. You should have done it this way. Some people take the time to explain why. But for the most part, no one's really mean about any of that stuff. It's only when it's, oh, hey, I just bought a modded SNES Mini for $250. What do you think? $250 and it's covered in glue and the things are falling apart and there's not even C-Sync hooked up to it, and it's just, yeah, it drives me insane when you see really bad stuff that people sell on eBay, you know. So
yeah, a lot of people don't know what to look for, unfortunately, and you got a lot of people out there that will spend a shit ton of money for stupid things. I mean, if nobody else is selling it, and somebody says, "Hey, I'm gonna do this," and you're gonna get new capacitors, you're gonna get a new laser for your CD player on your PC engine. I'm gonna throw in this awesome RGB, whatever, and you don't have to do nothing but send me fucking $300 or whatever. Some of those people will just like shell that shit out and be like, "Fuck that, I don't even want to deal with it. I don't want to have to go look for one. I got to spend $150 to buy one without that shit or more, and then send it to him." And so there are people who see that there was no options back then. Nobody was offering this stuff. And yeah, there may have been options, but they were hidden in forums and crap. This guy was smart. I'm not gonna lie. Even though he did shitty work, he was smart. He went on eBay. That's what you need to do. eBay. If you offer your services on eBay, then people are going to see it.
It's a place where people know where to go. Right. But that's actually my point. Is if that dude charged an extra 100 on top of it, but the work was flawless, then you know what? If you don't want to pay for it, don't pay for it. It's your business, not his. If the work's flawless, everything works great. But that wasn't the case. It's just you spend a lot of money to have something that needs to be repaired. So.
Yeah, I need to get mine repaired. Maybe I'll send it off to go get it fixed. I don't know. I was told that Voltar does them, or somebody. I can't remember. They'll do it or something. But I don't know. I don't even play it that much. My only problem with it was the way it was. I could not play my EverDrive with it because the power wasn't wired a certain way for the EverDrive to work because of some reason that it drew too much power from the cartridge port. I can't remember. But that was the problem with it.
Yeah.
So unless I go out and buy a bunch of PC Engine games or something like that, I don't want to spend any more money.
Yeah, I hear you. You always got to cut yourself off after a while. Sometimes I just find myself buying piles of junk, and I'm like, what the hell did I just buy that for?
Man.
I'm going to review it, put it on the website, and then never use it again. So, yeah.
Oh, you got to see my RGB box. I mean, I got cables, adapters, like everything. I could hook up anything that has to do with RGB or a component or anything.
Yep.
I got anything that was strip of sync to, like all kind of stuff. They don't even use, but like, it's funny because every once in a while I'm like, I need that thing, and then I go get it. I've even got BNCs with like the splitters.
Yeah.
Where you can hook up 2 to 1 instead of if you only had one input, you at least can do 2. There's all kind of stuff.
Like having a big toolbox. How often do you use all of the tools in your toolbox? But when you do, it's like, yeah, so glad I had that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, man. Well, this was awesome. Thanks. I'm glad I finally got you on to talk a little bit. Sorry, I'm still coughing and sick and everything, but.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, thanks a lot. And this your new video, as soon as that comes up, I'll repost it, and I gotta have you on at some other point again soon. Maybe after the 5200 gets RGB modded, we'll do a live stream and play some Adventure 2, right?
They're making a new version for the Atari 8-bit though, a better version.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
I'm actually waiting for that one to come out, but he's been working on that since 2010, and it's like 2016 and it hasn't came out yet. So hopefully he fixed that one or get it out soon.
All right. Well, thanks again, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Take it easy, guy. Bye.